freaking first cut. Golly. Bonjour and welcome to the First Cut Podcast. I'm Rick Gehman, and this is your mega preview pod for this week's President's Cup. It's storylines, it's best bets, it's craziness. I don't know what's going to happen. I can't control these guys. Joining me to break it all down, Patrick McDonald is here. Patrick.
Bonjour. Bonjour. Hello. I think that's the typical cadence there you get in Montreal, Rick, to kind of see if you're English or French speaking. Clearly, you have the French tongue, so good to be with you guys. I'm excited for this week. I am. I know it gets ragged on, but I'm excited about it, and I'm excited to talk about it.
No one has said bonjour to me yet. They are quite aware that I do not speak the mother tongue, and they just hit me with a, hey, what's up? How's it going? So things are going out beautifully here. Greg DuCharme, hello.
Bonjour, monsieur.
Ooh.
Merci.
Monsieur. Merci. I took French in high school.
Nice.
I was pretty good at it for a period of time. I have forgotten nearly all of it. So I won't be speaking any more French than you just heard this week, but I too am excited for this week. I think it's going to be a compelling event with some compelling matches, and who I think will win will arrive later in the show.
Okay, nice little tease, a professional tease. We also, if you were watching on YouTube, you noticed we did indeed have Kyle Porter, and it seems as if now we do not. Maybe the internet, it is just a series of tubes, has kicked him off, and we will do our best to get him back. Gentlemen, I was indeed at Royal Montreal today. There were press conferences, there were interviews, but we are not going to start there. We are going to put a cap on the BMW PGA Championship from last week. This is a massive event on the European Tour. We got Billy Horschel winning in a playoff, making an eagle to beat out one Rory McIlroy. Let's start with the winner, Greg. That's Billy Horschel, who has a knack for getting snubbed from Team USA and then going out and winning the BMW PGA Championship.
Yeah, and you always wish you had him on the team. It's fascinating. He just hasn't quite done enough to demand a spot on the team, but his play this year was so impressive. You know, we had a show a little while ago during the long off season that we had, and there were some awards given out, and one of them went to Billy Horschel for me. I don't think we ever got to it on the show, but it was the guy that really impressed you that you probably will never talk about again. And that was Billy Horschel for me. He made some great improvements in his game. He got his swing back together. And if there was a comeback player of the year award on the PGA Tour, I do think Billy Horschel would be, very much in the running for that. So I was so impressed with him, as I have been all year.
It's interesting, Patrick, because, the time between captain selections and the end result of that team event, it's happening very quickly, but it's happening very slowly, right? So team gets locked in, Billy Horschel wins, and already, the aging of not selecting Billy Horschel, not aging so well. God forbid Max Homa struggles in Montreal this week. And even worse, if Max Homa struggles and this United States team does not pull it out, it will be unlimited fodder for why Billy Horschel was not on this team.
Well, Billy Horschel, even before the BMW PGA Championship, I know Greg said he didn't play his way onto it, but I think he played well enough to earn a captain's selection.
I think you and I, when we went through the team, we might have had him on there, and I said, let's just put him and Keegan out there first and burn this whole thing down.
Yes, exactly. And you guys poke fun of me as to why I was in Canada so much this season. Part of the reason, obviously, the Russell Henley campaign was great. A door-to-door grassroots campaign was successful. But the second one up in Niagara Falls was purely Keegan Bradley, Billy Horschel, that duo. And we only got one through the border, unfortunately, not as successful. So it's a great win for Billy Horschel. I think he's the first American to win that twice, which is pretty awesome for him. He's someone who's really leaned into the DP World Tour. And then for Rory McIlroy, man, talk about a summer of what could have been, with going back really to the U.S. Open. Between that, the Scottish Open, he was in with a chance at the Olympics as well to honestly win the gold medal with what happened on that back nine before he dumped one in the water late, the Irish Open, and then this as well. And so tough summer for Rory McIlroy, a good summer. Like, you obviously have to play some really good golf to get yourself into the position as often as he does, but tough
indeed. I'm getting word that we do have KP back. Let's try to add in Kyle and see. Hello, Kyle. Do we have you?
Tough. Speaking of tough, my internet is tough right now.
Sounds good. Looks good right now.
Oh, great. Well, give it 3 minutes.
Welcome.
Good to see you, gentlemen.
Yes, good to see you as well.
You guys are talking Wentworth?
We're talking Wentworth. We're talking Rory McIlroy because he was, don't quote me on this, but I believe he was 3 back with 3 to play. Might have been 2 back with 3 to play, but Wentworth is so interesting, Kyle. Was it 2 back? Thank you, Patrick. It's so interesting because Wentworth is 17 par 5, 18 par 5.
Mm-hmm.
And that creates some hairy situations. We saw Rory McIlroy make eagle on 17, but then a par on 18 to just get into the playoff. A birdie, he would have won it. Tristan Lawrence, I believe, went 5-5. He was actually the 3rd man in that playoff, but got knocked out earlier before Billy Horschel made that eagle. So a lot of great shots from Rory to get into the mix, but did not have that birdie on 18, that circle on 18 to get the job done in regulation.
Yeah, he didn't. I think a couple things. I think the first is that Patrick sort of touched on this, but Rory wins tournaments by being in the mix more than anybody else in the world, right? It's not like I looked up the most times entering the top 3 of on a leaderboard going into the final round in the last since 2010. Dustin Johnson he's entered entered the final round in the top 3 of a tournament 54 times. Rory's now done it. I think it's 84.
Oh my God. Is that first and second?
First, second, or third?
No, I'm saying is Dustin Johnson second and then Rory is that much higher?
Oh.
Or were you just using DJ as like a benchmark?
I think DJ is second.
That's wild.
It's crazy, right? And he's not, like, statistically, I wrote about this a little bit last week. He's not necessarily an amazing closer in terms of like final round scoring. His final round scoring on Sunday was fine. It was good. It was 67. I think field average was like 69 or 70, something like that. But the thing I will like, so my point there is like he wins tournaments by getting in the mix, and sometimes it goes your way and sometimes it doesn't. He's not like a homo where he just closes out every single time he's in it, right? Or Bryson actually does that very well also. The thing I will say about Rory, though, and I think we've seen maybe a extreme version of this year, when it matters to him, like when it really matters, whether it's a major, whether it's Royal County Down, I don't know that I'd throw Wentworth in this category, but maybe so because he's not like it's been a while since he won. I think he struggles with that, and I think that's a little bit of what makes him human. And relatable and endearing, but I don't think it's like a crazy take to say that he struggles a little bit when it really means something to him. And that wasn't necessarily the case at Wentworth, but I think we've seen that off and on throughout this summer.
Maybe not necessarily that specific case, but I think you're right where the buildup of it, he's probably thinking, man, if I can just get across the finish line here or anywhere, that might make me feel a lot better. So it gets ratcheted up the more frequently you don't get the job done.
Totally. And I had lunch with somebody today, and we were talking about just golf at this time of year, and he was making the case that September is like his favorite golf month in terms of watching pro golf. And he was making the coffee golf case and Royal County Down. We got St. Andrews next week and team events and all this stuff. And I was like, that's pretty interesting. Like this has very little to do with Rory, but he is playing that schedule. He's very much playing that schedule. And I think there is a case to be made that September, October are really, really great golf months.
They are. And we've got a team event coming up starting on Thursday, the President's Cup. That is where we are headed next and for the rest of the show. But first, we're going to take a quick break and hear a word from our partners.
There are some things in life that you can't quite explain.
An extraordinary story.
Maybe it sounds flawless, looks effortless, or makes you feel like a part of history.
The first ever goal for BFC.
And when all of those phenomenons come together, it's perfect. Pitch perfect.
And we're back, gentlemen. The President's Cup is the task at hand. And Greg, I want to contrast this a little bit to the Ryder Cup. The Ryder Cup is very much a sprint. It is completed over just 3 days, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, with 2 sessions each on Friday and Saturday. The President's Cup is a little bit longer. There is 1 session of 5 matches on Thursday, and then 5 sessions of, oh boy, here we go. 5 sessions on Thursday. 5 sessions. No. 5 matches.
There we go.
In session 1 on Thursday. 5 matches in session 2 on Friday. 4 matches on session 3 on Saturday. 4 matches on session 4 on Saturday. That's the long day. And then, Greg, Sunday singles. I will eventually get this right.
Yes, and you did. You nailed it. No, there's a couple things to this. One, having it stretched out over 4 days, I have no issue with. I certainly understand it. But having 5 matches on the first 2 days, I think really, you got 10 players for both teams that have to play. And I think that's that plays into the Americans' hands in general. And I think it's a part of the reason why. We've seen a time where there were 6 matches where it was 6, 6, 5, and 5. And I think that really plays into the team with more depth. And the internationals don't have the depth the Americans do. That is obvious. So, that's one of the biggest reasons why the Americans have had so much success in this event. And probably a reason why the Europeans have had so much success in the Ryder Cup. Looking at we have an average world rank of 11 to 34 in favor of the Americans, or 35. That's not dissimilar to what the Europeans roll out there. And the Europeans have a tendency to ride really heavy on their stars. And I do think the internationals have the star power that's similar to the Europeans, but they're forced to roll out a little more depth. And I do think that hurts them.
Yeah, difficult to hide guys because everybody is playing and they're playing a lot more. And you get guys who play all 5 sessions just because, as Greg mentioned, there's only 2 guys that are going to sit the first couple of sessions, and then they'll go to 4 guys sitting. Royal Montreal, Patrick, must go to you for the scouting report. You know every single golf course in Canada, and that is no different at Royal Montreal. They've got 45 holes here, but they're going to play the 18 on the blue course. This has hosted the President's Cup in the past, 2007. It is the oldest golf club in North America. Yes, that is indeed true. And it's setting up to be a little bit of a wet one this week with the rain in the forecast.
I will say, I feel like every country club or old golf course says something like, we are the oldest golf club in the world. It's kind of like Fuddruckers. We have the best hamburger in the world, which I believed for quite a while, up until maybe like the 5th grade. But yes, as you know, Rick, being down there,
wait, does Fuddruckers claim that?
They did back in the day. And it was one of those, it was like in Elf when Buddy walks into the coffee shop and he goes, "You guys did it. The best cup of coffee in the world." Up until maybe the 5th grade, because there's one by my grade school, I thought Fuddruckers.
Did you ever have the cheese sauce and with your like potato wedge fries? Do you remember that?
I do not. I just remember.
Might have been before your time.
The hamburger.
They actually have this trademarked, I believe, or copy. They have a copyright on world's greatest hamburgers.
Yep.
Fuddruckers.
I thought it was true for the longest time.
It feels subjective.
There's a gas station in California that says the largest gas station in California. It's not that big. I don't think it's that big. And in terms of what? It's not in terms of gas pumps, because I've seen other ones with way more pumps. Is it in terms of like square footage of the candy aisle? Like, I just don't understand how they can get away with this nonsense.
I don't know how they keep getting away with it. We should
just trademark it.
We should start calling ourselves the best podcast in golf.
The number one podcast.
The number
in
one.
golf,
Yes, the number
Yeah.
one golf podcast.
according to
According
the
to
hosts.
Patrick's
According to our
mom.
families. Yeah.
According to me.
Technically true. That being said, if we want to get back onto the golf course, I did find out today via Rick's Twitter that they have apple trees on the property,
All
which
over.
is a pretty cool touch if you're looking for a little snack. I will say the strategy of this golf course is what I'm looking into because, as Greg and I talked about last night, you look at where the high leverage shots are going to come. All 4 par 3s are odd numbered holes, and both the par 5s are even numbered. So that player who's hitting tee shots off the odd holes will hit both approach shots into the par 5s, second shots, and all 4 shots into the par 3s, assuming they get to number 17, which is the last par 3. And you look back at 2007, generally the Americans have dominated in foursomes in the President's Cup. In 2007, they won 10.5 to half in foursomes. So you look at who has the more accurate drivers of the golf ball. Well, actually, it's the Americans. They have the top 4, 5 out of the top 7. Who have the better iron players? Also, the Americans. And so I could see them really putting the hurt on the internationals and foursomes just with how this golf course is laid out.
Foursomes is where they struggled in the Ryder Cup.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
That's
they've
where they
dominated in the Presidents.
So Kyle, let me ask you about that because the captain's pressers were today. And one of the questions that Jim Furyk was asked was something to the effect of, why do you think you do so well at the President's Cup, but not at the Ryder Cup?
It's a fun question.
Do you have any theories on that? And admittedly, I thought he was tiptoeing around saying the Europeans are better than the internationals are. Is kind of what I think there's a skill gap, is what I think that he was tiptoeing around, because it doesn't make sense that they can be as miserable in foursomes in a Ryder Cup and as amazing in President's Cups with essentially the same players.
Yeah, because correct me if I'm wrong, Craig, but your foursomes is where your depth and your skill shows, right? You can go, one person can get hot in best ball, and it doesn't like foursomes is should be the better team winning. And
yeah, team being the key word for sure.
Right. And I think there's been times where sometimes I think the President's Cup is good for these guys because they don't get so wound up. Like sometimes in the Ryder Cup, sometimes with foursomes, I feel like they overthink it, and then you end up with Phil and Bryson in the same pairing, and you're like, who literally any casual golf fan could have said this is a terrible idea. And with the President's Cup, they just kind of like roll guys out there and say, yeah, and obviously like the skill of the other team matters. But yeah, I don't know. That's a weird sort of subplot to these team events, is how good they've been in foursomes on one and how bad on the other.
They're going to play 4 ball on Thursday. So everybody's going to play their own ball and they'll take the best score. We're not going to see foursomes until Friday. Greg, I'll circle back on this because I do think that gap is closing. I think the international team has been building something over the last couple of President's Cups. They're now back on home soil. There is an expectation that the Canadian crowd is going to be quite rowdy this week. It's pretty quiet on Tuesday, but it's just Tuesday, and there might be some moments. Is there somebody? I mean, Tom Kim had a breakout 2 years ago at the President's Cup. Both Canadians went 0-4 at the last President's Cup. I mean, there is definitely juice to squeeze out of this team.
And I think it really comes from the Canadians. If the Canadians are playing well and winning matches, I mean, not only is that a huge point differential from the last President's Cup, but there could be a little supercharger effect in that with this crowd. So Mackenzie Hughes and Corey Connors and Taylor Pendrith are going to play a huge role in this event. And I would imagine that Mike Weir's plan going into the week is to lean pretty heavily on them. And if you can't lean on them, if they struggle, you're in a really difficult situation. because there's this, well, we want to play these guys, especially take Saturday, for example. We want to play these guys because they're going to get the crowd going more than anybody else. But at the same time, can we play? Are they the best players? And are they the players that should be on the field? And so it creates a little bit of a difficult situation for Captain Weir, where there's an attachment to the flag, but you really need to be basing this off of play. So I'm totally with you, Rick. I think there is a lot of juice to squeeze. I think when you look at some of these young up and comers like Tom Kim, like Sung Jae Im, these guys have started, even Siwoo Kim, right? Some of these younger players have started to have a little more success in the President's Cup. Siwoo Kim and Sung Jae Im actually have winning records despite never being on a winning team. So, if those guys are able to maintain their good play and you get the Canadians to flip, I feel like this is political analysis now. If you can flip the Canadians and they start winning points instead of losing points, you get your Hideki Matsuyama and Adam Scott to go and battle the heavy hitters on the Americans and, get half points or, scrounge out a point here or there. All of a sudden, this could get pretty interesting. So I'm very curious to see how they start, especially because, again, to go back to this different format, I didn't mention this before. You want to get everybody involved so you know what you're dealing with. That takes 2 days, not 1 day. So, you want everybody to get a touch in those first 2 days. And what we've talked about it here on the First Cut podcast, those first 2 sessions are critical for the overall outcome. And very often you see kind of the last 3 sessions near a tie, and the first 2 sessions makes the whole difference. So I think that's a very interesting factor this week. The internationals they need Thursday. They need to take Thursday.
They need Thursday, and everybody, as I mentioned, Patrick, is going to be able to play their own ball. And Patrick, I'm now just donning you captain of the international squad. You spend enough time in Canada. I think we can pull this one through. What do your pairings look like, or what are you doing on Thursday in a format that you've got to get because you guys haven't been good in foursomes?
He's calling you out, Patrick.
How are you? Yeah, I'm blaming all
you guys
13 losses or whatever on you right now. How are you harnessing your skills, your crowd? Like, what are you running out there? What's your plan?
So first, I have a question, which every captain should ask: Who gets to pick first? Right? Who puts the first matchup on the board?
I think they flip a coin, don't they?
Okay.
I think they flip a coin, then they go back and forth, right?
Flip a coin and then snake draft it.
Sorry, Greg.
Let's pretend it's you, Patrick.
Yeah, let's
say I'm going first.
You're going
so
first. You got to put out. Which, by the way, hold on. I should mention that Ryder Cup. It's just blind. Each captain submits their order and their teams, and whatever gets matched up gets matched up. The President's Cup, they sit across from each other and whisper amongst their team, and then they play off one another, which is very, very interesting.
It's way better.
Yeah, it is a billion times better.
Yeah,
it's awesome.
So you have first pick, Patrick.
Okay, I will say I agree with Greg that the Canadians and some of the youngsters can provide a lot of juice, but the international team, if they want to win, they need to get Hideki Matsuyama and Adam Scott running downhill. You look at the 2022 President's Cup, Hideki got boned. He was going against Xander and Cantlay and Foursomes, or Spieth and JT, who were playing great that week. Adam Scott, he got boned as well. Combined, Adam Scott went 2-3. Hideki went 1-3-1. That one win for Hideki was alongside Adam Scott. I think it was against Cameron Young, no offense, and someone else. So not to throw him under the bus. He'll be in Rome, though. Shout out to Freddie Couples. I will say, so
I forgot about that.
So what do you want to do with those two? Do you want to hide them, or do you want to go strength on strength? And I think I would honestly try to hide them. Not like hide them, but if I'm I'm probably
You
not putting
coward.
$1
You
out.
are such a coward.
We just saw in 2022 it didn't work.
That was 2 years ago.
So I'm avoiding the teams as best as I can of Xander and Cantlay and Scotty and whoever, and trying to put Hideki and Scott out there against a Max Homa perhaps, or someone else.
You're gonna offer up a couple of sacrificial lambs to Xander and Patrick Cantlay.
Not sacrificial lamb, so to speak, but some crazy duos. I might throw like a Siwoo Kim, Tom Kim at them. See if they can handle it.
I think you throw the Canadians at them.
That too. That'd be great too.
Like just you got two elite ball strikers in Cantlay and Xander. Throw Mac Hughes and Pendrith at him.
Yeah. So I don't mean I'm hiding Hideki and Adam Scott. I'm just trying to avoid the two top teams of the U.S.
I think Patrick brings up a good point with the Adam Scott Hideki thing. I ranked the players in the field today, and I know we did this last week on the podcast, but I only had 3 internationals in my top 11, 3 international players. And I would go maybe a step further than Patrick and say, to not get blown out, Adam Scott and Hideki have to show up. And to win, they got to have the middle, like Sung Jae, Tom Kim, Pendrith, Jason Day, whose record is horrible. Like those guys you have to get those guys going. So I kind of agree with Patrick. Like throw your sort of rah like Minwoo and somebody like that at Scheffler. Throw the Canadians at Xander and Cantlay, and then see if Hideki and Adam Scott can beat up on Russ Henley and some of the newbies.
Yeah.
There's a lot of different ways you could do this. So I tweeted this out, Josh, if you want to pull that up. Now I did both teams, and I did not really care who they were going against. I just looked at who I was putting them out there with. So I'm going 2 Canadians out first, Corey Connors and Mackenzie Hughes. This is why they're here. You need this Canadian crowd, and it's actually early on Thursday, or I'm sorry, it's late on Thursday. It's like 11:30. It's not like an early 7 a.m. They're going to be foaming at the mouth on the first tee. I need my Canadians there, getting them fired up. And then from the U.S. side, Greg, I need to know here the problem that I had in Rome. They waited too long to deploy Justin Thomas, and I didn't know what I had. And Jordan Spieth, and they were already getting their butts kicked. I'm going to find out about Max Homa now, immediately. He's going out, and I need to know whether I need to see him on Sunday for the next time, or if I can trust this guy.
Well, I think that's a really strong point. And when you're looking also at the formats, right? Four ball Thursday, Foursomes Friday, that adds another layer to it. I'm not putting Max Homa out there in Foursomes unless for some reason he decides to go on a total stripe show on Thursday. And all of a sudden my opinion of where Max Homa's game's at changes. So he is in my first session. He is not in my first match. And I certainly, if I had the option as Jim Furyk, I'm not putting him against the Canadians because I don't want to give them momentum. If I'm Captain Furyk and Corey Connors and Mackenzie Hughes or Taylor Pendrith, or I get a Canadian duo first, I'm going with Patrick Cantlay and Xander Schauffele first.
You're just going to try to nip this right in the bud.
I want Royal Montreal to be the quietest President's Cup we've ever heard. And there is nobody better to suck the energy right out of the room.
Any room.
Not just this room.
No, I mean, they could suck the air out of a country. And that's what I would lean on them to do.
And they have.
They have.
The landlord.
They might just do it again.
The landlord. I will say, so last President's Cup they went Cantlay Schauffele Thursday morning, and then Friday morning they went Spieth Thomas. Saturday morning they went Spieth Thomas, and then for Saturday afternoon they went Cantlay Schauffele to lead off.
Yeah. Although Ryder Cup, not, I mean, obviously it doesn't matter, but I think they went Burns Scheffler in the first group out on Friday.
Yeah, and
I want to be on the I want to be on the record. If they played Homa and Foursomes, there should be a grand jury for Jim Furyk.
If could you imagine a scenario in which they play him in Foursomes and that team loses 5-4 and just like, what are we? I could have told you that was going to happen.
Who has more pressure on him this week, Jim Furyk or Max Homa?
Furyk.
Furyk.
Homa's not going to play that much, I don't think.
Kyle, is there anything he could do, Homa could do in the first match to change your mind?
I don't think so. The numbers are just, oh God. The landlord and the 2-time major winner. His numbers, Greg, I was looking at him today. So Minwoo is like the second worst guy over the last 3 months in this event. He's like a 0.4 strokes gained per round, which is not, I don't know. It's not very good. It's okay. Max is a stroke worse than him per round. A stroke worse than the second worst guy in the field in this event.
It's really hard to describe how bad he's been. He has been one of the worst players on the PGA Tour.
Here it is. So Min was 0.44, Homa's negative 0.74 over the last 3 months.
I do not know, with all due respect, how in the world he made this team.
It was one of those things, I think, where you forgot there was homework due. You have the worksheet in front of you. I'm just going to circle all A's and turn it in just so it's in on time. It seems like that's what Jim Furyk kind of did.
Homework.
There you go.
Nice.
Well done. Yeah, I don't know. It's going to be interesting. But you're right. It just has to be 3 sessions. It has to be the two football.
What other matchups did you have up there, Rick? Josh, can we get that back on?
So I did split up. I split Hideki and Adam Scott, and I was torn on this. I kind of wanted to fight fire with fire and put those guys together, but I thought Jason Day could shepherd Minwoo Lee. I thought Adam Scott could shepherd Taylor Pendrith, and then then you get Sungjae and Hideki, and then Tom Kim and Siwoo Kim might just go nuts and make 14 birdies or something like that. So that's the way that I did it. I would not be at all like, I almost did just put Scott and Hideki together, and then the other side's pretty straightforward. I think it's you get Burns, Scheffler, Cantlay, Xander, Morikawa, and Finau have played together before, I believe. And then I wanted to get, I feel like I want to get Henley out there because I think he deserves to be out there, and I didn't really know where to put him. So I just stuck the California guys together with Homa and Sahith, and then Wyndham and Russell.
Wyndham and
I also want to know,
would be weird.
I also want to know what I have in Wyndham too.
Yeah. I will say the one matchup that I am desperate to see, I don't know if it'll happen, but Tom Kim and Minwoo. So just electricity on the international side against Keegan and Sahith. Just a nuclear battle.
Yeah.
Oppenheimer.
It would be awesome. I don't know if any of those guys, Tom Kim and Siwoo played together in the last team. I don't know if it was foursomes or four-ball, but the last team match in 2022 on Saturday.
And who'd they beat?
I think they beat Xander and Cantlay.
They did.
Yeah.
Four-ball.
So it was 4-ball.
Yeah. So yes, they did. Yeah, I don't know what to do with Wyndham Clark. I just picked the guy that I thought was just the most who could handle Wyndham's ups and downs. Yeah. And just said, Russell's not going to get, he doesn't get, I mean, he has to play golf like, if someone bombs it 40 yards past him, he doesn't get rattled. He's just not going to get rattled by anything. I just stuck him. I didn't know what to do with Wyndham Clark.
Yeah.
See, I kind of think you should split Scheffler and Burns.
I don't mind that, but I just don't think they're going to do it.
So I was gonna say this, Greg. I think I wrote about storylines earlier this week. I think Scheffler's struggles at team events is a real storyline. Like he was awesome at whistling straights and did great as kind of the low key whatever. He wasn't a star there, although he played like one. And since then he's like 0-5-3 at President's Cup and Ryder Cup,
including one of the biggest losses ever. If not, was Victor and Ludwig the biggest loss ever?
I think so.
Yeah.
Gotta be. I mean, there's almost t-shirts for that.
that was so we kept seeing the board 5 up, 6 up, 7 up. And I remember being like, I got to get over there. I think like this is good. It was painful to like every shot that like you missed the green felt like the world was crashing down on those guys. It was so sick. And then when they closed it out, they started doing like the skull clap. The whole thing is just bonkers, man.
Yeah. And this is what will be cool about this event, actually, Rick, is you get momentum going the wrong way if you're the Americans, and it feels like you will never win another hole, much less a match.
No. I'm worried Scotty Scheffler won't be able to find the club face. Like I'm worried about everything. It turns so intense.
Yeah, it's so good. He did hit a shank in 2022, by the way. Quail Hall, 10th hole, I think.
He shanks a couple a year. Guy stinks.
He does.
We are going to turn our attention to some wagers. So we did this for the Ryder Cup as well. So we've got some top point scorers. We've got our favorite props. We've got ways to talk about these matches and potential breakout stars even more. But first, we're going to take a quick break and hear a word from our partners.
CBS Sports HQ, giving you college football coverage unlike anyone else.
We're talking Big Ten.
Pre- and post-game coverage.
Are you encouraged with the way that this team responded?
Along with breaking news.
A lot of movement in the rankings this week.
Highlights and expert analysis.
That streak could be in jeopardy here.
Sure. What was your main takeaway from this game? How impressive was his domination?
That really changed the football game.
Let's go ahead and have some more fun.
Another wild ending.
The chaos continues.
Turn to CBS Sports HQ.
And we're back. Before I forget, KP, there was a good quote from Tom Kim that I thought you would like, and I don't know it exactly, but he said something like, he wants to be a good teammate. You think about this event for 2 years, and then when you're here, all you think about is the guy you're playing with. And I thought, whoa, that was like a very European Ryder Cup thing to say. And his whole monologue was just about, it's all about the team. I got to be the best teammate, whether that is me being the spark plug or whether that is me being the leader, whether that is me sitting on the bench. Like, I've got to just be that guy.
Well, I think what's interesting is you've seen this transition over the last 20 years where the international team formerly was just a collection of really good players from disparate countries that didn't really know each other and could barely talk to each other in some cases.
They hardly speak the same languages.
And now that gap has narrowed because it's a lot of PGA Tour. It's a lot of English speaking. It's a lot of United States, guys that live in the United States. And so I think that even culturally, it's just easier to be more galvanized in 2024 than it was in 1996 or whatever, and that is interesting though. Like I wonder, and maybe we could talk to the other person that's sometimes on this podcast, but I wonder who behind the scenes is sort of pushing that. Is it Trevor? Is it Ernie Els? Is it, you've got all these guys that are kind of, I think Els has been instrumental in that, but it would be interesting to hear, like, okay, who looked at Europe and was like, okay, here's how we need to sort of model this more like them. So some of it is circumstantial, but some of it is certainly like, seems like a vision of somebody's that is being pushed upon the international team.
Yeah, interesting. And the other 6 internationals who didn't speak today will speak tomorrow, so maybe we'll get some more of that. The wagers for this week, and I honestly think they got half a chance to win, is the international squad. They are big dogs right now, about plus 270 to win the President's Cup. But the way that we have broken this down for this episode is we are each going to choose a top U.S. point scorer, a top international point scorer, our favorite prop, and then just an additional winner's bet, which we've kind of all gone in a variety of directions with. So Josh, without further ado, please share, thank you very much, the grid. And Greg, we're going to start with you. I'm looking for the golfer in which you think is going to be the top U.S. point scorer, please.
Yeah, I went with Sam Burns here at 7-1. I really like that number. And I think there's a couple pathways for him. One is he plays with Scheffler. It goes great. They get a ton of usage, and he ends up winning a singles match and is your top point getter. The other is he gets separated from Scotty, relieves a little bit of pressure, and all of a sudden you see his skill sets come to life. Now, especially, Rick, after seeing your report in the apple orchard today, a very light rough, I think that sets up perfectly for a Sam Burns, who has been striking his irons as well as anybody over the last 5 weeks or so that he's played. He's a phenomenal putter. I think we could see Sam Burns put together a huge week. It does eliminate my chance at a perfect grid, but I think it's worth it because I'm looking for Sam Burns to have a big week.
He's got the skill set to get hot, approach play, and putting. Also, if you're going to miss big, because outside the rope lines, it's completely trampled down and no problems whatsoever. KP, your top American is 6.5 to 1. Who is it, please?
Yeah, I thought about Xander here. I saw that you and Patrick picked him. I almost picked him. I think Scotty's terrible value. So I wanted to go Xander, but I went with Morikawa instead. He's been just so good this year. And I think that, I was looking the last 3 months, there's 4 guys that are strokes gained 2+. So two, if you're over 2, that's so elite. It's so good. And it's obviously Xander and Scotty, but then it's Morikawa and Hideki, who are my 2 picks here. So I'm just kind of banking on those guys bringing some momentum into this week. And obviously Hideki's going to play a lot. I think Morikawa is going to play a lot too. He's playable. He was talking today about how much he likes this golf course, how it plays into his hands. They can play him with anybody. He's just a very, I don't know. I really like him this week to play very well.
Yeah, won the Raw leaderboard at the Tour Championship. Played in a group, if you want to read into things, with Russell Henley, Scotty Scheffler, and Sahith Theegala, though based on the rest of those names, I don't think you should read into anything about that. Maybe Colin and Sahith, a couple of California kids, but I don't know if there's
rivals.
If there's
Cal and Pepperdine.
Wow. Scotty
Imagine
Scheffler getting the number 1 player in the world.
I know.
Would it
Finally.
be? Yeah, I was gonna say, would it be Russ playing with Scotty or Scotty playing with Russ, Patrick?
I mean, only one of them has a losing record in the President's Cup. It's not Russ.
It's true. They
I'm
both
sure
have 0 President's Cup wins.
Yeah.
I'm sure we're going to get to Russell Henley much more, but Patrick, you and I did land on the same golfer. Why don't you tell everybody who is our pick for top U.S. point scorer?
I agree with KP. The Scotty number just couldn't bite on that. So Xander Schauffele, 6 to 1. He's so good on the greens. I don't think it's really been talked about enough how good of a putter Xander Schauffele is, and that's going to be lethal with his tee to green game. Patrick Cantlett was talking earlier today about how the golf course kind of reminds him of some golf courses in California, really likes it, and that should bode well for Xander given that partnership. And then obviously 4-ball and singles might be the difference. So I like the number at 6 to 1.
Yeah, got a great partner in Patrick Cantlay, very good in both formats, and then we'll see how many points he can rack up. We've got 4 different international players for international top scorer. Patrick, I'm going to snake this and bounce it right back to you.
Didn't really know where to go for the internationals, but I think Taylor Pendrith generally is getting undervalued at 14 to 1. That is the second to longest number. I think Benyon is 16 to 1, but should this guy be longer than Seabez? He's double the price of Corey Connors, which I think is kind of rude. And so I could see him being played 4 times again, like he was in 2022. And I think he could have a lot more success, especially with how he's putting the golf ball in 2024. The iron play has been stellar as well. And as Greg mentioned with Sam Burns, if the misses are fine, then I think Taylor Pendrith could have a great week.
Yeah, Pendrith 14 to 1. He was 0-4 in 2022. So obviously looking for revenge this time around. And Greg, you also picked a Canadian, and I do think this is a decent pathway to getting a lot of usage. I think Mike Weir is going to use these guys. I think he's going to use them early and often. And I think that if they can provide some spark, some juice around this place. They're going to keep running out there. So I don't think it's bad to take these long numbers on the Canadians.
Yes, and I went with Mackenzie Hughes, not quite as long as Taylor Pendrith. I'm kind of with Patrick here. I didn't know where to go. I see a lot of value in Taylor Pendrith. But at the same time, Mackenzie Hughes has a knack for stepping up when an event is important to him, right? He stepped up in the Canadian Open and played really well this year. He lives in Charlotte at Quail Hollow, and if he was able to play really well at the Wells Fargo this year, I was vocal that he shouldn't have been picked on the team. I thought that was a mistake, and so I'm going to hedge my bet here, and I'm going to say Mackenzie Hughes just gets something going and ends up top scorer for the Internationals.
Greg was trying to move the line.
Yeah, he was. Just make it a little bit longer. Okay, I'll take it. I went with Adam Scott here. KP and I went with some of the shorter players, and for me, it's about experience. Even throughout his 10 President's Cups, he's played all 5 sessions in nearly every single one of them. I don't think that's stopping anytime soon. He's in the midst of some of the best golf that he's played in quite some time. So Adam Scott is 7-1, and KP, round us out here with your top international.
Yeah, I've got Hideki. Same sort of theory there. He's going to play a ton. He's I don't know if he's as hot as Adam Scott is right now, but his golf all year has been so good, so underrated, and I think that's a pretty decent number for Hideki.
Yeah, I think these guys have a built-in floor of matches. Points, we'll see, but you got to have opportunities to score those points. Prop bets. So this is open to really anything. Sometimes it's top captain's pick. It could be a top rookie. It could be broken down by teams. So there's a lot of different directions to go here. Greg, I'm interested, in what you did down here for your $25. What do you got?
I got top combined scorer. So this is international and U.S.
The whole thing.
The whole thing. The top scorer of the week I have is Patrick Cantlay. Now, I know I said earlier that Sam Burns was going to be the top U.S. scorer. So I'm hedging a little bit here. But I look at Patrick Cantlay, and his President's Cup record is 6-3. His Ryder Cup record 5-2-1. He has been an absolute standout in team events. And I think he has separated himself as the best player in these team events, even maybe perhaps a little edge over Xander Schauffele, who's his good partner. Although Xander Schauffele, with the performances that he's been putting up, I think Patrick can help gather a little momentum in that department, which I think will be really valuable. So I love Patrick Cantlay coming into this. I think he's due for a big week. And let's say top combined point scorer at 12-1.
There you go. 12-1 to be the man who outscores everybody else. Now, Patrick and Kyle found the same golfer, but I'm gonna make Patrick wait on this one. KP, let us know who you have, and then if you missed anything, Patrick can clean up the mess.
Yeah, well, we have Russell Henley. I'm trying to pull up I can't find it, who even the other options were. And I when I was looking at him, he just stood out as like, oh, this seems just like, I don't know if he'll end up as here it is. So top USA rookie, Wyndham Clark plus 150, Brian Harmon plus 225, Sahith plus 250, and then Russell Henley plus 550. That just did not make sense to me.
We've already talked about how crazy Clark and Sahith could be, and then Harmon's just been okay.
Like, are any of those guys? Do you trust that any of those guys will for sure play more than any of the others, including Henley? I don't really think so. And because of that, it's like, well, I don't know. I just think there's so much value in getting Henley at that plus 550 compared to those 3 other guys.
Yeah, as KP mentioned, this is a group of 4. Clark, Thagala, Harmon, and Henley. Henley, a sizable dog here, the long shot here by a pretty significant margin. Patrick, anything you'd like to add to that conversation?
I don't know what we're missing, honestly. It feels too good to be true. It's what do you say, Rick? The line's talking to me.
And
then
you're
you go the
listening. You're listening, baby.
Yeah.
To be fair, Patrick would have picked him at minus 550 also.
Yes, that is true. And I mean, added bonus, what if they roll back the Harmon Homa Ryder Cup duo? Sign me up for that, for this bet. And then you just have to deal with the Wild Boys, the Hamburglar and Sahith Theegala. And I love where we stand for Russell Henley.
I love it. It's perfect in every single way. Plus 550 to be the top U.S. rookie for Russell Henley. And then I, piggybacking off of Patrick's top international point score selection, I went with Taylor Pendrith to be the top captain's pick. So there's a lot of captain's picks. There's 12 of them. So it's everybody from Sam Burns to Russell Henley. I went with Pendrith, just all the reasons that we've already talked about. He can get hot. He might get a lot of usage. Could catch fire here. Now, this is kind of open up to anything. We were calling it our winner's bet, but we kind of took this as win a specific day, win by an exact score, or kind of do anything that you'd like here. Greg, how about we start with you and your selection?
Okay. In the winner bet, I decided to pick a non-win. Okay. I picked a day 4 tie. Now, day 4 tie. Singles historically have been pretty tight. The Americans have an edge. They've won 90 points in singles. The internationals have won 78. It's only 12 points between them. The Americans have won 7 singles sessions. The internationals have won 3, and there have been 4 ties. The singles have a tendency of being very close, and I think I really liked, other than some of these other numbers, I really liked the day 4 tie at 7-1 more than the others.
Sunday singles coming down 6-6 would get you this 7-1 wager. I say the race to 5, first to 5, goes to the internationals at plus 170. And they better, because if they don't, it's going to be a short one. And yeah, night is exactly right, because they are, first off, they're going to have all the juice on Thursday. They are playing the format that is better for them. They've had an opportunity to basically set up this, not set it up, because the PGA Tour still sets up pin positions and stuff, but set up this golf course how they want. If they don't win the race to 5, they're certainly not winning the race to 15.5. So let's start with that, plus 170 for the first 5 points, or the race to 5 to go to the international squad. Patrick, please enlighten us with some wagering knowledge.
I love that bet, Rick. Really good pick. I thought about going race to first full point myself.
That's a sicko bet. That's like first bucket NBA.
Yeah,
full point.
Yeah, it was internationals. I think it was like plus 150. So I don't want to throw any questions in your head.
Yeah, because Furyk's going to run out Xander and Cantlay, and you as the captain is going to give a sacrificial lamb of Bezaden Hote and Minwoo Lee.
I am laying the juice on day 2 with US to win minus 145. As I mentioned, I think they have a sizable advantage in foursomes, given the history, given how this golf course is set up. This Justin Ray tweet also, that is a 33-point difference since 2007. Sign me up, lay the juice, minus 145 for US to win outright day 2.
33-point difference since 07. Is that what it was? Yikes.
07.
Yeah, that's a lot. 56.5 to 23.5 in foursomes.
Wish I would have seen this tweet before I made my picks.
Which now all I think about is when Greg says you hit some of the shots in foursomes, which I think is so good.
Oh.
Yeah, and in 4-ball, you hit all of your shots.
Okay.
You'll never forget it. It's great.
You'll never forget it. KP, you've done it. You have predicted the exact winning outcome down to the score. We don't even have to play this. What's it going to be?
Well, this is probably a foolish bet, but 16-14 USA. I actually think it's going to be close going into Saturday night. And then, as you'll see in my best bets, I think the US is going to overwhelm them with talent on Sunday in singles. I think a lot of those singles matches, Greg, I think back to 2017, right, at Liberty National, or with
Mhm.
yeah, 2017, where it's like, I don't, probably guys were half hungover in those matches. You know, like it was over on Saturday night, and I think when it's, you know, we saw this in 2019 at Melbourne, when it's meaningful, the U.S. brings it in singles.
Something to that, no doubt.
The interesting thing, KP, I was looking for it, but this is, despite you having that as a U.S. victory, that is almost certainly covering whatever the spread is going to be. So you are at least more bullish on the internationals to be able to keep this close.
Yeah, I am. I think if they had their full regiment with Cam Smith and Louis and all those guys, I'd kind of be in on an international win. I don't think it's going to happen because I think the U.S. talent is so overwhelming. But this U.S. team doesn't fire me up. It doesn't excite me. There's no juice for me going into this event for the U.S. side.
I agree with you. I cannot find. Maybe it's not out. Maybe it's too early. But I think in 2021 it was like 6.5 points was the spread or something.
Really?
Like that.
It's 3.5, Rick.
Is that what it is? Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I guess it's you know what they say, 3 points for a home game. That's the difference. So there you go. 3.5. Thank you, Patrick. All right. Now Josh is very generous. So he gives us a bonus bet. That's where we take our extra $50 and we put it on anything else that we want after splitting those 4 bets, $25 each. So let's go with the big wagers here. And KP, you teased us. You teased us with your bonus bet. So why don't you just let us know what it is?
Yeah, I've got U.S. winning singles on day 4 at -160. I didn't realize it was as close as it was. I went back and looked at some of the Sunday matchups, and the U.S. hasn't lost recently. They've tied on Sunday. They lost, I think, back in 2015 or 13 or something like that. But if you just look at the talent gap is pretty overwhelming. I don't think that means that the overall event will be a blowout, but I think it could have a 2019 vibe where the U.S. is struggling, and then it takes kind of a late charge to get the job done.
That would come in at -160 for that wager. I flipped it around. I went +190, close enough, and took the internationals to win day 1. Listen, if I think they're going to race to 5, I think there's a pretty good chance they win day 1. I bet them to win this whole thing, and I'll definitely bet them to cover. I don't know how I got this far down this road, but I'm here and I'm sticking to my gun. So +190 for team internationals to win the first day, which is 4 ball. Greg, your best bet, please.
USA day 2 winner. Got to get a win on the board here. Their record, I mean, you saw the Justin Ray stat. They're all-time 11-2-1 in the foursome session. Now that is combining both foursome sessions, but I think day 2, the U.S. takes that session. And so, Rick, you and I could both be right, and that would probably mean we got a pretty compelling tournament heading into the weekend.
We could all conceivably get our best bets correct. Internationals win day 1. U.S. wins day 2. U.S. wins the singles in day 4. And somewhere along the way, Patrick, what happens?
What a psycho bet that is.
He's
Corey
an insane person.
Will be making a hole-in-one this week at 150-1. He is among the favorites in this category. So, I don't like to go chalky all the time, but had to for this one. And with the John Rahm buffer that I have from his famous win in Chicago, I figured I could get a little creative. And I feel like this guy is making a hole-in-one every other tournament. And as I said, I will be watching the first tee shot on Friday very closely, because if Corey Connors is not teeing off the odd holes, that means he will have 0 chances at a hole-in-one.
I was going to say, you could be cooked on this.
Very much.
But the other thing is, even what are the most chances he could have to make a hole-in-one?
20.
It's going to be
all 5 sessions.
No,
I don't know if I would, let's say half his matches reach 17, if that. I think I think 17 would be a good number for me, with 20 obviously being the ceiling. But if we get 17 swings at it,
First off,
I'll be a happy camper.
this should be like 1,500 to 1, but it's
It should.
150.
No, it's robbery.
There
on
are,
my end, Greg. You kidding me?
Here you go. I found the props. Team to score first full point, US minus 150, internationals plus 120. Will there be a hole in one in general by anyone? The yes side is plus 300. The no side is minus 400. There was also, how about this one? Russ, you can pick any golfer, but Russ Henley to win all 5 points, 110 to 1.
Yeah, that one, I didn't have enough faith for that. But I was thinking, when was the last hole in one in a team competition?
Somebody almost made one at Whistling Straits to win it.
Brooks.
Yeah, Brooks. Or
that was the first thing that popped into my head. I thought it was Morikawa.
Morikawa almost did also. It was on that 17th hole. Victor made a hole in one on a par 4 on a second ball on a practice round.
In a practice round. Oh, that was
so
wild.
I feel like between Whistling Straits, practice round, it's coming.
Between Victor and Corey Connors do like make an ace a month.
They do. Rick, imagine the scenes when you're there too, because you're following my bet for me, and boom, it happens. 17 Friday evening. Oh,
to win the match.
To win the match.
Oh my God, that place would go nuts.
What would that net you here? 50 times 150?
Yeah.
7,500?
50 times.
That return column would get pretty high.
He would then, yeah, that would be really good. How about this though? I noticed something today. No grandstand, not a one on the 18th green.
It's like LACC.
What?
So if it comes down to 8, which I guess is probably unlikely, but if it comes down to 18, there's nothing there, and they're gonna be able to fit about 200 people around that green.
What?
That's awful.
I was like, this can't be 18. It is.
Sounds like a logistical nightmare all around.
There is a weird, even last year, Rick, like think about 17 and 18 in Rome, where it's really hard at those events because most matches are probably going to end between 15 and 17, somewhere in there. So you
I don't think a lot of matches even got to 18 in Rome.
Right. And so like, I don't know that you had probably one grandstand there. Like it wasn't a lot.
Yeah, and well, at least, and also the other thing was the first grandstand was so big, and like you could like turn around. I felt like, and look, but they did the same thing. It's kind of just like a massive first tee grandstand, and nothing at 18.
Yeah, that's interesting.
Okay. Anything else, gentlemen, before we get out of here?
There's some good story hunters in the press building today. I don't know if you saw these, KP.
Oh yeah,
God, I saw
role model.
Role model is a good one. Paul Rudd, role models.
That guy
the question's hilarious. It's like, it's a presidential election, so naturally I'm thinking about role models. It's like, are you?
Every single golfer was like, "What do you mean? Does it have to be a political role model?"
And then
he kept saying the same thing over and over.
3 things that come to mind when you think Canada.
Did you see?
Patrick Cantlay said Canadians, and then Colin Morikawa said La Canada, California.
You know who was asking that question?
Who was that?
That was Shane Ryan.
He got some pretty good answers. I mean, better than the role models, I'll say. And I mean, Shane's all time. And then
Shane is all time.
A good one. Favorite thing about USA, Scotty Scheffler said food. Sahith Theegala said the milkshakes. And then Russell Henley put on his political cap. I generally hate people like celebrities and athletes endorsing political
but
campaigns.
As long as it's Russ.
But if Russell Henley, he said, quote, "We're just so free in America to work as hard as we want and create businesses or do anything we want. Save our money, spend our money, and in a really, really safe place. There's so many positives to think of, but that freedom is amazing." I was
Wow.
ready to run through a freaking
Russ,
brick wall for Russell Henley.
Henley McDonald 2028. I can see it now.
God. Yeah.
You get my vote.
I mean, you guys could pull it off.
Blind vote from over here.
The other one was they had French words on a phone. They're like, try to pronounce this, then also guess what you think it is. And let me tell you, they weren't all that interested in knowing that.
They weren't interested in what?
They were not interested in like making fools of themselves.
Oh, shocker.
For that. Yeah.
You need somebody like DJ for that.
Yeah.
That like, even if he doesn't answer, it's still funny.
Bonjour.
I don't know. Just hit a cut. Make sure it cuts.
Bonjour.
Anything else? Get your rain boots ready. There is rain in the forecast each of the next 3 days. TBD on what that ends up actually being. But we will be back after the conclusion of each round of play. That's Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday for all your round by round recaps. Big thanks to producer Josh. Does all the hard work behind the scenes. That right there, Greg DuCharme. You can find him at The Real GFD. Patrick McDonald at P McDonald CBS. That right there. Kyle Porter at Kyle Porter CBS. You can find me at Rick Run Good. This has been The First Cut. We'll catch you next time.